best way to put it, simply. Well, it sort of harbors on insanity.
Ass-kicking, mind-blowing, surreal extravaganza.
It was about a bunch of things. It was about society. It was about, just a lot of different stuff,
So I'm not sure that tells you much, except that it's not going to be like a movie you've seen before.
The script was unlike anything I had read before.
I read the script and I was charmed by it. I thought it was really interesting.
It was like, I read it and I'm like, wow, this is a great script. Wow, this is such cool, witty dialogue for me to say.
I read the script from cover to cover in one shot, which for me, that's pretty amazing for me to sit down and watch it, or read it. Anyhow, the script was great. It's a very engrossing script, and you really have to pay attention to what's going on. It's got all kinds of emotional ups and downs. It's really well written. I'm proud of him.
It was 49 drafts, 3 different versions.
You know what? I have to face death. And this was a bad idea. You guys shouldn't have come. You know what? I should kick your ass. You need us. Otherwise, you'd be totally isolated, dealing with all your self-centered obsessions all by yourself. I can handle myself. I'm a freaking dictator. A dictator. When I first read This Is Not a Movie, I loved it. Thought it was very existential and, funny and, I enjoyed it.
It's a tragic comedy. Sometimes it's more comical than tragic. Sometimes it's way more tragic than comical.
You'd have to imagine a very vivid conversation with yourself. The movie has that quality of a mind jumping around and a kind of dialogue between different aspects of the self. And that self happens also to be a very smart person who's also commenting on the culture and values of materialism and manipulation and propaganda and our expectations of what movies and art are about.
So it's all been fun, everything's really, every scene is interesting, every little piece, of the script has a great part of the story to tell, so it's all pretty good.
And there's a lot of psychedelic crazy shit going on. There's a lot of, there's naked girls. There's a lot of stuff going on while all of this existential self, trying to figure myself out kind of crap is happening.
So I knew that Elia was going to make an interesting movie when I read the script, because I thought the mind that could write this script could make an interesting movie. But I didn't know how skillful he would be. He's really, really gifted and made a very provocative and smart film and made it in high style. The music's fantastic. I was really impressed.
This is my body. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My bottle is my best friend. It is my life.
I think that the music is probably, I would imagine, is almost as important as the characters, because it's such a huge void throughout the movie, and each piece of music is so indicative of what's going on in the scene and the kind of feeling that the scene has, that it's a pretty important vehicle for the characters in the movie and for the story and all that, which I think is going to be really cool.
I wanted guitars for the score, but not only like Neil Young in Dead Man, which is a movie that of course I love and everything. The score is great, it's fantastic. But I wanted many guitars and pads and acoustic guitars and a lot of different guitar sounds with effects and everything. So we thought, okay, you want guitars, why not send the script to Slash? Right? And I said, Slash would be interesting, but I don't think he's gonna read the script, I couldn't visualize in my head Slash reading my script, He's in the top of the mountain playing the solos of November Rain. I mean, he's completely unreachable. But he read it, And he liked it. And he told me he read it twice. Not because the first time he didn't get it, but because he wanted to appreciate all the details. We met in a restaurant in LA, and we talked for hours about everything. It was really cool.
And he and I met, and Eulayo's a music fan, like a rock and roll fan. So we had a great time, and we hit it off really well.
So we had a great time. And I gave him a playlist with a lot of music. Captain Beyond, Hawkwind, I was really into Hawkwind. The Open Mind, The Pretty Things, right? And Ennio Morricone, John Williams.
So it's been a lot of fun for me because it's a huge outlet for me to play like all this different kinds of things that I never really get a chance to do. And one of the other things was Eulayo's got a lot of wide tastes in music. And so some of the stuff that he was into that he would use for temps, I'd be like, oh, that's really cool. You know, so I liked all the music that he picked that was already written that he thought would sort of, that this is the vibe or it's this vibe or whatever. All that stuff I really liked, you know, so that was very inspiring.
And he really got this, not a movie, he got the script. I mean, he understood it really well. Before we started shooting, he was one of the people who really got it. He thought of it as a Twilight Zone episode with psychedelic rock.
I think probably the most challenging part, for one, I've never scored a movie. We're not using any traditional scoring methods. I don't have an orchestra or anything like that. So coming up with guitar ideas that fit the theme of every scene that needs a different piece of music. Fortunately, Eulayo's got, like I said, he's very musical, so he had sort of a musical cues of his own that he sent me that I sort of like get an idea of what kind of vibe that he wanted. And that part of it was actually pretty easy. I could understand what kind of music he wanted, and I would just get an interpretation of that and then write something of my own. I think the hardest part is just the grueling hours and the amount of just tedious work that goes into developing a scene. And like I said, not really, you sort of just improvising as opposed to writing music and timing everything out to every frame and all that kind of stuff. Basically just going for a feel. But the rewarding part is I'd finish something and 9 times out of 10, Eulayo would be happy, and then we move on to the next one.
With Eulayo, it just turned into collaborative play. I think he's a really gifted person. I think he's like crazy brilliant. And he's young, and he's only going to season and get better and more skillful. And I think it's going to be another great Mexican export.
But yeah, I watched it and I was very proud of it. I got a feeling of pride. So I mean, yeah, that's a good thing. I really enjoyed it.
This film would have been impossible without an actor as gifted as Eddie Furlong.
And I mean, it was my first option. It was great to think of John Connor, right? The guy who was going to save the world or humanity from the tyranny of the machines, and what happened to him? He's in an apocalyptic scenario, locked inside a hotel room, waiting for the end of the world, completely lost, forgotten, no story, no memories, And so I thought he was perfect for that. That's one thing. And the other thing is that he worked with some of the greatest actors in Hollywood, Meryl Streep, Liam Neeson, Edward Norton, Jeff Bridges, Frank Langella, Willem Dafoe, Steve Buscemi, Mickey Rourke. I mean, the list is incredible.
There was a great deal about this film I didn't expect. I didn't know how photographically beautiful it would be. I didn't know how great the soundtrack would be, slashes, guitar solos and stuff. And it's not even my taste in music, but I loved it in the film. I forgot how beautiful the women were in the dance sequence when we did that in Mexico. I had no idea how good the special effects were going to be.
There's a lot of really, really good stuff in here.
I I loved it, you know?
You gotta be really honest. As honest as possible. I think that's very important.
I think that films like Olayo's help by being critical and by giving you a sort of an outside place to stand and think about these things.
It was a big project to kind of take on, but I'm very glad I did.
It's just such a crazy story, you know?